Now we have to start from form control element. So far we were talking about the forms. Okay, the form control element, you have buttons. You can create the buttons. You have seen that in the form you have submit, right? You have to click me, you have to accept. Those things will be considered as a button. When you want button, then you are going to, when clickable function is there, that means you have to define button. If you want a data list, it is the HTML5 element that will define the predefined value in input field. You can define field set, that means when you have group of element, like how gender. In gender, how we have male, female and others. That means these three are in one group. So when such cases you are going to use a field set. When you have country, or when you are going to set multiple option, you are going to do that, all will come into one field set. Then you have the form. You can, as you have seen that you are using the form. Then if you want to define input field, then you can use input for defining input, and HTML5 will be having almost 20 different types of input you can give. Next, label, that means you want to give the caption, some name, then you are going to define as a label. Then legend, what is the legend? It will be defining a label on the field set group. Label is separate and legend is separate. Now option, when you have multiple option to select, then define an option in multi-item list, then you are going to use option. When you have OPT group, that means you are going to define the group of related items. Okay, when you have the more items in the list. Select, when you are going to define a multi-item list. And when you want the text area, that means paragraph, multiple paragraphs they can write, then you are going to use text area. These are the HTML elements of the form. You can use any of this element. Example, so first one, as you have the text. In text input control, you have different types like text. The moment if you define text, you can see here what I am using in this, you will be having a input type. You can see here I am using as a input type is equal to, you have to define input type is equal to text. The moment if you give the type is equal to text, whatever you are going to write in input field, it will be visible for the users, and it is a single line entry. You will be enter only one line. It's not, you will not getting the multiple lines. And you can define the name is equal to title, some name you can give. Suppose in case of that you want multiple text area, that multiple lines, multiple paragraphs you want, then how you are going to, you cannot use the text. That condition you are going to use text area. The moment you use text area, it will create a multi-line text entry box, and you can use this as a paragraph. You can see here we are defining text area. Rows is equal to 3. You have to define how many rows you want. I am defining a 3 row, it will be visible, and if any other attribute is there, you can also add it here. Next, in input type you have the password. When you are entering the password, example in your Gmail, in your Facebook, when you type the password, okay, then that password will be visible in only in a star dot format, right? Then in that case you are going to use type is equal to password. So it will create a single line text entry box for a password, which marks as an entry as a bullet or some other character whichever you want, and also you can add if any other element you want. Next, search. If you want a search string, then you can use input type is equal to search, and this is also HTML5 element. Yesterday we have seen in the, when while searching in Google, the in form action it was search they are using, that is the HTML5 element, and it will search the element on the basis of what you are searching. This is the your input text control. Next, you have something email. Suppose you want to define an email, then even you can use email. Input type is equal to email. That means again it will be a single line text entry box, and it is suitable for entering only an email address, and this is also an HTML5 element. Some devices like iPhone will provide the special keyword for this element, and some browser will perform validation when the form is going to be submitted. That means what validation required? That means when you search, when you are typing the email ID, anyone will type @xyz, but xyz is not existing, or you are typing something at email.com, where is the @ symbol? That validation required, and it will be searching. Next, you will be having telephone. If you want a telephone number, then you can use input type is equal to tel, telephone. It will give into the format how you want into the your form. Next, URL. This is also a single line entry, and it is suitable for your entering a URL, and this is also your HTML5 element, and the moment you type some URL, it will take into the URL format. This is the text input control. Example, you can see here how we have used. We are writing input type text, then you can see here the text box is getting appear. If you are writing text area and some text, you can see the text area is getting into the multiple paragraph. You can see that, and it is getting appear. If you write here placeholder is equal to, that means inside the text box it will display the content. The moment you press the cursor, that this will get disappear. That is the meaning of placeholder. Next, input type is equal to password. You can see here we have defined it is a blank. The moment you start typing anything, it will show into bullets or some special character if you want to use. Even if you want some placeholder, then you can use, you can see here when in search box, type enter search text. You can write anything. I'm entering here placeholder, enter search text, then it is getting appear like this. Then input type email. If you type email, you can see here I am writing here in Opera, in Chrome, it will give you this error if you are not writing the correct email. Same way, if you type URL and if you are not giving correct, that also it will wrong. And telephone, as usual, you can enter telephone number. This is the example for the text input control. Now we have something HTML5 advanced control. The moment you use, see there is the HTML, and now we are using mostly HTML5. Then you have something called pattern attribute. What is this pattern attribute? As I mentioned, right, the pattern attribute is like when you want to give the users to keep into the format, the placeholder will be the pattern you have to follow. Then how you are going to define? The same way we are defining into input type is equal to text, placeholder we are giving something, then pattern, that means the users has to enter only alphabetics, then number, alphabetics, number, alphabetics, number. This is the pattern. You can define the pattern, but this is actually in HTML5, not is your normal HTML. And mostly all of the browser now they support HTML5. So even if you write, then it will give the result. If you want to test this and see the result is getting affected or not, then you use any IE version, Internet Explorer, some 5 or 4, then you will get to know the difference. Next, you have something choice control. What is the choice control? That means select list. When you want to select, you have the choice to be selected. Then you are going to use a select element. You have used in your other programming language choice, right? Switch case. Then in switch, as the place of switch, here it is select. So this element will be used to create a multiple line box for selecting one or more item. If you want to select more item, then you have to use select. How you will be using this? You are going to use same way. You are going to define input, type is equal to text, name is equal to city, and list is equal to cities. Now because you are going to enter the list of cities, then that's why we are defining here list. And when you define the list, that means you are going to give data list, and ID is equal to cities, because we have used here ID as a cities. So same ID we have to define here. Now option, you are going to give option. What is the option? Calcutta, whatever the option you want, you can define this option and finally close the data list. Remember one thing guys, this input field is the stand-alone element. You can see here closing is there at the end only. You are not going to write the closing separately for the input, then it will be wrong. And only we are closing for this data list. Like this one, you can use the choice control. These are in HTML5. Next, what is the select list? When you want to use the select list, as I mentioned, the select, you have to use the syntax as a select. This element is used to create multiple line box for selecting one or more item. If you want to select one, if you have one or more than choice, then you are going to use select. When you are going to give select, that means you are going to define the option, and this option you have to use, and it will be hidden in the drop down, or it will be in multiple row of the list can be visible. The moment you drag, then you can select that, and you can particular choice will be selected. So option items can be grouped together via OPT group. If you want to group that one, then you have to use OPT group. All the option will be in the one group. You can see the example here. What example we have? The example we have, as I mentioned, you are going to use select. I am going to use name. You give any name. Name is equal to choice. As I said, you have to use option. I am giving option. So we have three options: first, second, third, and finally close this select. If you want select size, you can define size is equal to also 3. The moment if you define size equal to 3, what happen? It will not visible in the drop down. It will visible like the so many option. It will be all option, 3 option will be visible in this. Okay. Next, if you define select, why we have given dot dot? That means if you want, you can define others also. Now you can see here, in suppose we are defining India, and India, so many state is there. The same way we have used here example as in North America and Europe. You can see here, in Europe other countries are there, in North America other countries are there. Then what you are going to do, you have to define, in that case you have to use the OPT group, option group, and label you are going to define, that is the North America. You can see label name North America. Then you give the option whatever you want. You have to close this OPT group. Similar way, another OPT group, close this OPT group with the other option, and finally close the main our select. So you can use the select element. It totally depends on your uses, that how you are going to design your page. Now you have something like which value to send, the value attribute of the option, right? We are using this so many option, right? So what will happen here, the moment you select, you are giving choice, and I am selecting second option, then it will go in the URL question mark choice is equal to second. Okay, or it will go choice is equal to, if you are giving like value 1, 2, 3, then it will go to choice is equal to 3. So what will happen here, that you have the attribute, value attribute. It is optional. If you want, you can use, otherwise you should not also. It's totally depend on if you, it's all optional. It is not mandatory. But what will happen, if you are defining value is equal to 1, then in URL the request will be submitted choice is equal to 2. But if you are using as a option only by default, then it will go what option you have selected, that option will be submitted to the server side. This is the value attribute into the select element. Next we have something radio button. You know what is the radio button? This is your radio button, right? When you want a radio button, then radio button we want, like when you are selecting gender, male or female or others, then we require radio button. Then radio button is useful whenever you want the user to select a single item from the small list. As I mentioned, you have a small list like male, female and others. Then you will be having M, you have a radio button like this, male, another radio button with female, and another radio button as a other. Okay, then when you tick this one, any one will get selected. If you are selecting M, then M only will be get dark. If you are selecting F, then F will be dark, or if any one will be. That's why it mentioned that this is the small list. We have only a small list with the 3 group, and you are selecting any one element, that is the choice will be visible. When you want to add the radio button, what is the syntax? The same way, because this will be added with the help of input type only. Then in type we were using text, now we will change to the radio element. So this is the way you can add the radio button in your HTML forms. And these buttons are mutually exclusive. What is the meaning of exclusive? That is, only one can be chosen. See, obviously when you have certain option, you can choose only one. You cannot choose male and female both. You can choose only one. So at a time, with help of this button, only one option will be selected, and it will be shared with the attribute as submitted to the server. The checked attribute is used to indicate the default choice. You will be using, by default, one choice will be selected. You have to change that. And the value attribute, here also you have the option. The value attribute works the same manner as we have seen into the option element. Then you can add the radio element. Next, you have something called checkbox. When you want checkbox, then how the checkbox will be there? This checkbox will be, you know very well, you will be having checkbox like this. Okay, you will be having checkbox. Okay, so like this the checkbox will be there. You are going to tick this one. Okay, so this is the checkbox. What is the checkbox? You are going to select yes or no, on, off. Then checkbox is used to get yes or no, on, off, and it is going to be response from the user. The same way, when you want to use checkbox, then you have to add the element as a input type is equal to checkbox element, right? The moment you use, it will be checkbox will be created, and this checkbox also will be group checkbox together, so you can share the details. The checkbox will have its own value, and it will send to the server. Like radio button, how you use, like with radio button, this check attribute can be also set default. You can set default. By default it should be selected yes, or by default what you want, it's totally depend on the user. You can set yes or no. This is like that, you can do that in checkbox. Then you have button control. What are the button control you have? Button control, you have input type. Same way, you are going to use submit button, you want a reset button, you want a simply button, or you want as a button image or simple button. These are the button control element we have. You can use this element in your HTML coding. If you want to use type is equal to submit, that means you can use here the creating button form data. If you want a reset button, that means create a button that clears any of the user entered form data. You have filled the form, now you don't want, what you will do, either you will erase that, or either you will be manually you have to do, or either you have to refresh. So better you give a button, that means functionality. The moment I click reset, it will automatically reset the form, and you'll be able to fill the form again. Next, it's create a custom button, and this button required, the moment if you use button like this, then you are going to use the JavaScript for this. If you want the another custom submit button that uses an image for display, then you can use as the displays image. And again, if you want a normal button, as I mentioned here button, it will create a custom button, and this button will completely customize that what the appearance for the button you want, and how it is going to be submitted to the backend. Like this way you can use the button element.